Greetings from Research and More. In this video, we will find out how to conceptualize a research-worthy proposal by incorporating answers to questions examiners might ask during proposal defense. What do you do after you have submitted your research proposal for evaluation by examiners? Will you be constantly wondering if your proposal will be accepted by the examiners? What are the questions you'll be asked at your proposal defense? When should you start preparing for the proposal defense? And how do you prepare for the defense? The timing and the preparation should not be any different from what we usually do when we plan to travel to an unfamiliar place. Research is a journey, not a destination. Therefore, we can approach the research journey just as we would when we want to visit a foreign place for the first time. Our initial problem is to decide on a destination from several possible destinations. Our objective is to arrive safely at the destination and enjoy our trip. When planning a trip to an unfamiliar place or country, people seek as much information as possible about the best way to travel using own previous experience visiting other places and by referring to the accounts of others who have been on similar trips. Then we consider all possible travel options to get there. Based on survival advice and top travel tips, we then plan ahead by considering our abilities, constraints, expectations, and equipments that may help us have an enjoyable trip. At the same time, we try to avoid problems by being prepared for any contingencies. That is, by being well prepared and organizing our travel well, we can expect to arrive at our destination safely, enjoy the trip, and return home with good memories. Let us now compare the travel journey with the drafting of a research proposal. In a research journey, you begin by identifying and analyzing the existence of the problem both at practical and fundamental level, and then use the literature review to show how your research will contribute to the knowledge and bring significance to all stakeholders. Prepare yourself to be asked questions about research methodology. So make sure to know the concepts well. Incorporate answers to research questions in your research design and methods. To avoid any problems during the proposal defense, make sure your proposal includes methods you plan to use to conduct the study. You achieve the objective of your proposal defense when the examiners accept your proposal and you are able to answer the examiner's questions satisfactorily. Once you have understood the path of your research journey well, you can now proceed to refine your research proposal by showing how you arrive at your decisions at each step of the research process. Start by providing strong justifications for the existence of research problem and show how the research problem is converted into workable forms through the research questions. Use the literature review to support arguments for the presence of research gaps so that your contribution to knowledge is convincing and justifies the need for research. To arrive at the end of the research journey successfully, the research methodology and design must be made explicit. Plan the research methods clearly so as to meet examiners' expectation. While it is not difficult to explain and describe the research that you propose to do, examiners' assessment is emphasizing more on how you conceptualize the methods. To avoid any problems during the proposal defense, be sure to make the research process explicit. Be explicit about what you want to do, why you want to do it in a particular way, and how you are going to carry out the research. When all of these processes are in place, you should be able to produce a research proposal that meets examiners' expectations as well as have a satisfying experience at your proposal defense. While there are similarities between a travel journey and a research journey, there are distinct differences between a mere writing of the proposal and being explicit about the decisions and justifications made when conceptualizing the research. Both begin by addressing the issues that need solving. Additional information is sought to distinguish between what is already known and what is still unknown to fill the gaps. While there are many options available to reach the destination, you have to choose the most appropriate one. The journey must be properly planned and not embarked at random. Anticipate challenges along the way and be prepared to mitigate them. With careful preparations right from the beginning, the journey will certainly end well. While it is not difficult to explain and describe your proposed research, examiners' assessment is emphasizing more on how you conceptualize the research process to determine if you will be able to produce scholarly work worthy of a doctoral degree. Questions asked by examiners tend to show a consistent pattern. They can be grouped into certain clusters. Examiners would want to see your level of engagement with the literature, your ability to show intellectual appreciation of how underlying theories relate to issues in the research, whether you have a good grasp of the methodology. To verify that you are able to clearly conceptualize your research design well and able to justify all the procedures you propose to conduct the study. To see that you have presented coherent arguments consistently throughout the proposal. And to ensure that your presentation of the proposal is in compliance with your institution's academic protocols. Here are some of the critical questions examiners normally ask. These questions can be grouped into three themes: direct questions, generic questions, and predictable questions. From each theme, we have clusters of related questions. Direct questions are questions that lead you to put your proposed study into context. The generic question clusters consist of questions that are critical to the research worthiness of your proposal. They are often conceptual in nature, and they relate specifically to the characteristics necessary to ensure that your proposal displays its doctorateness. And questions that seek specific sets of information fall under the predictable questions. At proposal defense level, the cluster of questions can be divided into 6. Examiners usually open the question and answer session with an icebreaker question, followed by questions to verify how you conceptualize your research. You can also expect questions within research methodology cluster. Examiners will have a set of questions falling within the research design cluster. There will be cluster of questions to justify the proposed research methods. and be prepared to answer questions on sampling procedures. Now let's look at some examples of questions within each cluster. Cluster 1 questions are made up of opening questions. Opening questions are usually generic in nature. It is intended to put you at ease prior to further questioning. A typical icebreaker question asked by examiners is to ask you to explain your reasons for selecting the topic for your research. Other questions may include an extension of an explanation which you may already have provided within the proposal itself. Or there can also be a serious question to open other topics for discussion. Examiner's initial question may also be in response to your proposal presentation. Or the question may also be asked just to allow you to set the choice of your doctoral research in a specific context. Cluster 2 contains more than one question to explore the conceptualization which guide your research approach. A generic question like, "How do you arrive at your conceptual framework?" is to allow you to explain your understanding of extant literature. Other questions that could be asked within the conceptualization cluster may include questions leading to your choice of proposed research models, components of the theoretical framework, choice of variables to be included in the conceptual framework, how you visualize the concepts to explain what you want to investigate, and how to use your conceptual framework to design your research. All these are key questions in any proposal defense or viva. Your answers to the questions will indicate to the examiners how you have made use of the literature to guide your research design and provide a framework in which your data will be collected. Cluster 3 questions are about research methodology. Examiners expect you to be able to distinguish between research methodology and research methods very clearly in your proposal. Their generic question could be, how would you justify your choice of methodology? Or they may ask, please explain your methodology to us. Other questions in this cluster may range across the following aspects of your research: the choices of research approach you consider as you plan your research, reasons why you opt for this particular methodology and reject others, your explanation for choosing a specific type of research that you propose to use. Cluster 4 questions are about the research design. From what you have written in the proposal, examiners would already know about the design of your research. However, they may still want to hear you explain it to them by asking a generic question like, how do you arrive at your research design? More specific questions within this cluster is to find out if you have considered other forms of research, if you are able to explain your research approach, why you select this particular design for your research, whether you can explain the link between your conceptual framework and your choice of methodology, or if you can defend that methodology. If you can explain where the data can be found and why your design is the most appropriate way of accessing that data. Cluster 5 questions is to allow you to justify your choice of research methods. Because you cannot simply state that you wish to collect your data in a certain way and stop there. Examiners will explore this aspect of your proposal in some detail, especially if you have not explained how you arrive at the choices in the written proposal well. Typical question is to ask you to defend your choice of research instrument. Specific questions within this cluster may include an explanation of how your methods relate to your conceptual framework, your justifications why you choose to use those methods of data collection, to know if you have considered other methods and why do you decide to reject them, to find out how you plan to handle the data that comes from open-ended questions, or how you plan to achieve a 100% response rate from your respondents. Examiners may not necessarily ask you any really searching questions about the detail of your research methods, but rather ask a generic question about just one method. Cluster 6 is on sampling. Generic questions from this cluster can be: how do you plan to select your respondents? Questions within this cluster is for you to explain how you decide upon your research boundaries, the population from which your sample will be selected, and what procedures will you use. Relationship between your respondents, the research design, and the conceptual framework. How you determine the sample size and whose procedures do you follow. The examiners normally just want to know if you can explain these choices and how you arrive at those decisions, rather than seeking special insight from you upon those technical issues. Now, how to prepare for proposal defense and when to start preparing. To prepare for the proposal defense well, you want to be clear of what you want to achieve and then follow the right path that will bring you there. Your aim is to have the proposal accepted by examiners by meeting their expectations. So where do you start? A natural answer is to say, start from the beginning. But where is the beginning? Well, the beginning is actually at the end. You should start at the end by knowing what is the outcome you expect from the proposal evaluation process, and then formulate plans to make sure you achieve that outcome. Before you are called to defend your proposal, you are required to submit a written proposal to be reviewed by the examiners. They will then prepare a report stating whether your proposal meets the evaluation criteria or not. And then, when you are invited to defend your proposal, the examiners have already decided whether your proposal is to be accepted or rejected. The proposal defense is just a formality to validate their recommendations, which means examiners' decision to accept or reject the proposal is based on what is written in the proposal and how the proposal is presented. Therefore, right from the beginning of your writing your proposal, be sure to conceptualize the research process well by planning ahead to incorporate answers to possible questions by the examiners. By being explicit about the entire research process in your written proposal, you should be able to convince the examiners that your proposal is research-worthy and meet the requirements of a doctoral research. When writing their research proposal, new researchers usually face many challenges that can affect the quality of their proposal. In the early stage of your research project, you may find it easy to talk about your research ideas, but often find it difficult to start writing about them concisely. Perhaps the biggest problem is how to explain what your research is all about precisely without any redundant words. Typical problems here could be due to the feeling of being overwhelmed when having to learn differently from your previous learning experience, which were more structured. It could also be due to your limited understanding of learning under an unstructured environment. In the beginning, you may also have a tendency to view things from broad perspectives as evidence from a lack of clarity in your work due to limited knowledge of the research process at this point. Faced with these challenges and having to produce a research proposal, some of you may begin to lose the momentum of your study and surrender to the just get on with it attitude. Such short-sighted view should not be allowed to prolong as it can hurt your progress. So manage these challenges first so that you can remain on track and produce a quality research proposal. Thank you for watching. If you find this video useful, please subscribe, share and comment so that more of similar videos can be created.